Hi, my name is Aaron, and I am one half of Abstract Atheists. My partner Amanda had done a reaction to this song on her channel, Mental Amanda, and asked that I do it on mine as well and put an atheist spin to it. The song is called Dear God by Dax. I don't know his music, I don't really know him at all, so this will be a first time listening to for me. So without further ado, here we go. No. Roll credits. Is that the Romans beating up Jesus?
I just want to make this clear. I am a believer,
Okay.
but sometimes it gets hard. My name's Dax. Dear God, there's a lot of questions that I have about the past, and I don't want to hear it from a human. You made it, so you're the last person that I'm ever gonna ask. Tell me what's real, tell me what's fake. Why is everything about you a debate? What's the point of love? Every time I showed it, I was broken, and it's forced me just to only want to hate. Why is there only one you but multiple religions? Why does every conversation end in a division? Why does everybody want to tell us how to live, but they won't listen to the same damn message that they give it? Tell me how to.
All right, I'm not going to try to pause this too many times, but a couple things to unpack there. So obviously he's a believer. I didn't know where he was coming from when he wrote this. So not at all what I expected, first and foremost. I'll be honest, I kind of thought this was going to be a slow country song and not a rap song, so I had no idea. So get that out of the way. But why are there so many religions? Why is everything a debate? This is something that is very difficult for me to really comprehend how religious people can run with this. They know that there are other religions out there, and at best, one can be right. They all can't be right. So why are there so many different religions out there? Well, I believe they're created by man first and foremost, largely to control people as a whole. But I'm sure there's more to it. So let's continue listening here.
Feel, tell me what's wrong. I tried to call, pick up the phone. I'm on my own. Everybody said you coming back to man. Why the hell's it taking so long? Why do I hurt? Why is there pain? Why does everything good always have to change? Why does everybody try to profit off another man's work then destroy it just for monetary gain? Tell me, are you black or are you white? I don't even really care. I just really want to know what's right. They've been saying one thing, but I've been looking in the book, and it seems like they've been lying for my whole damn life. Tell me where I'm going. Is it heaven or hell? I just hope this message greets you well. Had a dream that I was walking with the devil. Don't remember how it feels, but I swear that I remember the smell. Looked me right into my eye and told me everything I wanted could be mine if I gave up and decided to sell. But I said I'd rather die than get mine. Now I'm here. No fear, one man with his
Wow, this is a lot.
Dear God, where were you when I needed it? When I fucked up and repeated it.
Felt that before.
My life is like a book that they've been judging by a cover, but have never took the time to fucking read the shit. I remember telling you my goals and my dreams, but you didn't even answer, so I guess you didn't believe in it. I remember sitting with a gun to my head trying to ask you for some help, but I guess you didn't believe it. I don't want religion, I want spirituality. I don't want a church, I need people to.
I want to touch on that real quick. So religion versus spirituality is something that I think people often confuse, and I think it can have different interpretations depending on who's talking about it. But for me, just to clarify from where I'm coming from, religion is a belief in a deity. Spirituality is kind of a belief in myself. I obviously don't believe in a deity, so I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in myself and the things that I can do and the things that I'm capable of. I can have a a spiritual experience in a very different way than other people do. I've talked about this at length with my partner Amanda. I get a spiritual experience from looking up at the stars and realizing that my problems really aren't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. That helps me. Now, to her, that's a very terrifying experience. She thinks about things very differently. Again, going back to my point that people can interpret things a different way, but that's where I stand. That's where I'm coming from.
Call a family. I don't want to tell my sins to another sinner just because he's got a robe and you went to some academy. I don't want to read it in the book. I want to hear it from you. Don't want to learn it in my school because they hiding the truth. Don't want to talk about it to another fucking human being, and that's the only reason that I even stepped in this booth. Dear God,
This is deep.
darkness and turn it into light. How do I believe in the concept where I speak to a man I've never seen with my own two eyes. How do I know that religion wasn't made just to separate the world and create a whole sky just to keep us in these chains while the rich get richer and the poor pray to you and perpetuate a lie? How do I know this ain't some big joke? How can I have faith when there is no hope? How the hell does one man have $100 billion and we still have people on the street that are broke? There's a lot of things I want to talk about and get off my chest. I can't sleep because the devil won't let me rest. I used to know a fucking pastor in a church and I can still hear the screams of the kids he will fucking molest. Dear God!
Oh, holy cow.
I'm supposed to fear you, but you ain't said shit. So maybe it's you who actually fears me. I don't know the answer, I just want to see it clear.
It's an interesting way of looking at it.
There's 1,000 different theories. All I want to know is who really made religion, because I know it wasn't you, but don't nobody believe me. No more lies, no more death. Bring back King, bring back X. Please, dear God, let their souls
Good line.
protect who's left and watch their steps. Dear God, I don't want to have to ask you again. I just hope that you know that I'm still a believer, so I'll end this all by saying amen.
I just got goosebumps.
It's Dax.
As he ascends up. Wow, 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 wow. First and foremost, awesome song, great video. I love that. That was really, really good. I literally have goosebumps. I don't know if you can catch that on screen, but I think that this is a very good position for every single human being to be at, where he's obviously a believer and I'm obviously an atheist. Everybody should be asking these questions. Now, he came out on a different side than I did, so he obviously is a believer and I'm not. So in some level, he feels some of these things that he's having answers to, or he's asking the questions to. I don't. I asked those questions and I didn't receive any kinds of answers. So yeah. Holy cow. There's a lot to unpack there. I admit, I'm going to pull up the lyrics on the side here because that was a million miles a minute. Like I said, I thought this was going to be like a slow country song, not a super fast rap video. So I apologize in advance. It's not something I would normally do, but I got to pull the lyrics up on this one. So give me just a sec here. All right, I'm probably not going to go through every verse here, but there were a couple things that popped out there that I really want to dive deep into. There we go. Dear God, there's a lot of questions that I have about the past, and I don't want to hear them from a human you made, so you're the last person that I'm ever going to ask. This is something that I really struggle with. When I hear about religion, I talk about religion with other people, they're the ones trying to tell me about it, and you're just as flawed as I am. You don't know anything just as well as I don't know anything. So you trying to convince me something that you don't know is true is kind of a weak position to come from. So I know that this is going to sound very hypocritical, and I fully acknowledge that up front, so don't flame me for that. I'm the kind of person, and through my life experiences, that I would need to see God himself appear to me to have any level of belief that he's real. That being said, if that were to happen, knowing what I know about science and everything that I've learned throughout my life, I wouldn't believe what I was just seeing. I know that sounds ridiculous, and that's why I'm sounding hypocritical. I wouldn't believe God. I would just assume that I'm having some schizophrenic breakdown. So I don't know what it would even take to convince me that there is a God, but that's where I'm coming from. I know that sounds ridiculous, and I don't know that I'm explaining myself clearly enough, but that's where I'm at. Tell me what's real. Tell me what's fake. Why is everything about you a debate? What's the point of love? Every time I've showed it, I was broken, and it's forced me just to only want to hate. This is something that I also don't get. Every person that has ever lived has different lived experience. We all have different life, we've all been through different things in our lives, and it's going to cause us to believe in different things. And I think there are a couple of things that we can largely agree on that are universally bad. Number one, don't kill people. That's a pretty obvious one. But then it starts to get a little bit dicey after that, where you could say, all right, well, don't steal people's things. I mean, that's probably another universal one, but there's, don't rape people. I think as a whole, most people would agree that that's a bad thing, but there are some cultures that, there's not even punishments for it. It's just kind of, well, whatever. And those differences, we're going to make drastic changes in the way that we view life, view an afterlife, view religion or lack of religion. But not everybody believes the same thing. So everybody's going to have these different views, and it shouldn't be that difficult. It should just be, here's God, here's the word, believe it or don't, and that's it. But it's not. Why is there only one you but multiple religions? Why does every conversation end in a division? Why does everybody tell us how to live, but they won't listen to the same message that they've been given? Um, there's a famous video by one of my favorite thinkers, Richard Dawkins, talking about, what if you're wrong? And the question is, what if you're wrong about your beliefs in atheism? And the question came from a religious person asking about, what if you're wrong about God? And his response is, well, anybody could be wrong. If it depends on the time and place throughout history that dictates what God you believe in. I grew up in America, which is largely a Christian nation. And had I been born in India, I would have believed in a different God. Or had lived in, during the time of the Vikings, I would have believed in Zeus or some other god. And it makes no sense that at this point in time, there's one God that just everybody should believe in. Well, history tells us differently. Like, everybody's believed in different things. So why are you villainizing me for just not believing in one more God that you don't believe in, or that you do believe in? Sorry. Tell me how to feel. Tell me what's wrong. I try to call back, pick up the phone. I'm on my own. Everybody said you're coming back, man. Why the heck is it taking so long? So this is obviously a call out to praying and not really getting a response. And I think at some point, religious or not, everybody at some point in their life has prayed and not gotten an answer. I, for one, have prayed lots. I was raised in the Mormon faith for 18 years, and what I thought was, very diligent and respectful prayer never yielded any results at all. I never got any answers to anything that I ever asked for. And some of those, admittedly, were probably a little bit selfish, childish things, but at the time they were important to me, but it didn't matter. Nothing ever came about it. Even if they were genuine things like I'm feeling sick or somebody that I know is feeling sick and I really need them to feel better right now, nothing. If I'm praying for things that I need or want even, and I'm never getting a response for it, why would I ever continue to do those things? That seems really pointless. Tell me, are you black? Are you white? I don't really even care. I just want to know what's right. They've been saying one thing, but I've been looking in the book and it seems like they've been lying for my whole dang life. I know there's a constant debate about what, maybe not so much God, but Jesus specifically looks like. And, there's a very white portrayal of him, and there's a what I think is a more accurate Middle Eastern portrayal, because that's where he was at the time. He's not going to look like, the white Jeff from down the street. He's going to look like somebody from that area. And I think in the grand scheme of things, that's largely irrelevant. It's not really what he looked like. It's what he taught, what he believed in. But I think that's a very valid question. I just want to know what's right. This is a good place to be. When you are questioning something scientific or religious or whatever it is that you're in your life, question it, challenge it, try to find out what's right, do your own research. And I think the more that you look, or at least in my case, the more that I look to try to find out what's right, the further I went away from God and religion. It just, nothing made sense. At least with science, you can say, all right, well, if I set up this specific experiment, I can test it, I can review those results, and I can repeat it. And that's the important one, is I can repeat it. When it comes to faith, you have nothing. You have no evidence of anything. You're, well, just pray. God has a plan for you. God works in a mysterious way. No, I don't buy anything. That doesn't do anything for me. That's just a cop-out answer for, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm also not concede that my point of view is wrong. That's a really weak position, especially if we're trying to convert somebody to your way of thinking. That's a really weak argument to have. Have some level of confidence and evidence that you can give to them. Dear God, where were you when I needed it? When I screwed up and repeated it? When they set the bar and I exceeded it? Where were you? So I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here, and I don't mean to, but where were you when I needed it? Again, I talked about this earlier. When I prayed for you, when I genuinely prayed, when I was in a dark place in my life and I was trying to get help, anytime that I asked for help from you, nothing ever came from it. The only help that I ever got was from real people. Some of them were believers, some of them weren't, and it didn't matter, but it wasn't from you. And I'm sick and tired of people not getting the credit they deserve when they do something good. If I ask for help and somebody goes out of the way to give it to me, I thank that person. I don't thank God that they sent that person to me. That's really invalidating of how the effort and that they gave to me. I just, people give too much credit to God and not enough to the people that actually give it. And if you do that long enough, that same person is not going to give you the help in the future. They're going to want some level of credit at some point. I remember telling you my goals and my dreams, but you didn't even answer, so I guess you didn't believe in it. I remember sitting with a gun to my head trying to ask you for some help, but I guess you didn't believe in it. This, I didn't know if I was ever going to talk about this, but this sits really, really close to home for me, not personally, but through my family. I had a sister who ended up taking her own life, and she had admittedly a mental health condition, but there was a certain passage in the scriptures that she very much clung to, and it was that verse that she would repeat in her head that ultimately caused her to take her own life. And sorry, I know that in that moment she was probably scared out of her mind. She was asking for help and she didn't get it. And I have a hard time talking about this with my family because they are still very religious and I am not. And so this is something I've never really gotten full closure on. Um, but I don't believe that I will ever see her again. And as a non believer, that's something that I have to accept. At least from a religious perspective, you have some level of hope that you will see them. And I will concede that that's a really awful position to have to take. But I can't force myself to believe in something that I don't believe in. And I don't believe that I will ever see her again. And that breaks my heart. Um, but why why her? She was a devout follower. She absolutely loved going to church. She had kids that she loved. Why wasn't she worth it? A loyal follower who would never question anything. Why would you take her? There are far better people, at least from the collective standpoint of humanity, that, you know what, this person could go. Let's keep this one around. But no, a person that really could have done good for you left this world way too early. I I cannot get over that. I don't want religion. I need that spirituality. I don't want a church. I need people to call a family. I don't want to tell my sins to another sinner just because he's got a robe and he went to some academy. I touched on this a little bit earlier, so I won't recap that, but I wanted to talk about the second part, or I guess, yeah, second part of that. I don't want a church. I need people to call a family. I will concede that there is one thing that religion generally tends to do pretty well, and that is create communities, as in the atheist community, if there is such a thing. Um, there is a sense of community in religion. I will give you that point. Now, whether or not you're doing good things with that community, I guess, is an entirely different point. But from my personal experience, when I was part of the Mormon faith, there were times where I would have members show up and help me when, frankly, nobody else did. And so I will give you that point. I'm not completely on one side, but I do think that largely religion can do a lot of good things for people. I don't think that it always does good for a lot of people. And I don't think that anybody needs religion to do good things. I don't think they have a monopoly on that. I just kind of wish that people understood that just because I'm not a believer doesn't mean that I can't also do good things. I know that sounds dumb to say out loud, but it's often how I feel. I don't want to tell my sins to another sinner just because he's got a robe and went to some academy. I don't know how things are done in a lot of other religions. I can only speak from my own personal experience, but I know that there's the confession booth of sorts that you can go and talk to your preacher or whatever they call them and tell, confess your sins, and this is what you got to do to make things right. For me, in my Mormon faith, we had to go talk to the bishop, and there was a couple times where I had to go talk to him, talk about some difficult things. And I mean, I could do the same thing with a therapist. To be honest, I would have felt a lot more comfortable with that. I think there was some level of, this was when I was a lot younger, if I tell these to my bishop, he's going to tell my parents are going to know. I didn't really have that level of comfort that this was just going to stay here in this room. At least with a therapist, there's a doctor-patient confidentiality that, what I tell him stays in this room. I didn't have that with the bishop. So even then, I still didn't feel comfortable talking to them about it. And I didn't feel confident or comfortable with somebody knowing things that I had done and not gossip or being gossiped about. I mean, that's just a personal insecurity. I understand that. But again, personal experience, that's what I felt. Dear God, how do I take this darkness and turn it into light. How do I believe in a concept where I speak to a man I've never seen with my own two eyes? How do I know that religion wasn't made to just separate the world and create a whole disguise? I think the first two lines are pretty self-explanatory, but the how do I know that religion wasn't made to separate the world and create a whole disguise? I don't think it's necessarily made to create a whole disguise. Like I mentioned before, I do think it's a way to. It was created by man to control people. Where I've got a large group of people, what's the best way of controlling somebody than to just say, well, if you don't believe me, you're just gonna die or go to hell or whatever it is that you believe in, and just use scare tactics. And I think that's a really awful way to try to control people. And I know that they're man-made because how many religions are there? There's thousands of different gods to choose from. Clearly, they're not all right. Some man had to come in and just say, all right, I believe in this. And anybody around me, if you don't believe me, you're going to, suffer for all eternity. Again, I hate the way that sounds, but that's really how I think about it. And if you think about it for any level at all, you'll kind of come to the same conclusion. At best, one can be right. So where did all these other religions come from? And to use the quote Ricky Gervais, he had a line saying where there's all these different gods that people believe in. I just don't believe in one more than you. You don't believe in all those other ones. I just don't believe in one more than you. I think that's a very honest way of looking at it. I think those are the big highlights that I wanted to go over. Overall, I actually really liked the song. I thought it was a great song. I think the whole message is ask the questions. Ask the questions. Ask the questions. It's never bad to have questions. Even in your own religion, ask the questions. Challenge the faith. It can do one of two things for you. It'll help you find out that it's not real, or in some cases, make you find out that your faith is stronger than you realized. Either way, great. Seriously, hats off to Dax. I thought that was a wonderful video. The lyrics, the message. Obviously, we fell on different sides of the equation, and that's totally fine. It's perfectly fine. I'm not out to villainize anybody that might think differently than I do. The whole point of creating this channel was to bring out some of the inconsistencies and share my personal experiences and let everybody know that, or at least the people that are maybe questioning themselves, that there are other people out there like you. I didn't realize that atheism was really a thing until probably my early 20s. And it sounds dumb not to think about it, but I just assumed everybody believed in some kind of a god. I knew that there were other religions out there, but I just kind of thought everybody believed in something. It didn't really occur to me that some people just believed in nothing. And was kind of a big changing moment for me that, wait, there's another side to this that I've never really explored before. Yeah, I appreciate you watching. If you learned something or have any questions, like, comment, hit subscribe. It's the closest thing we get to a prayer.